Imagine a world where all of your rights were stripped. You couldn't choose how to control your own body. You couldn't control your money. You couldn't control your property. You couldn't control your own life. You didn't have a say in what job you had because they had everything mapped out for you. There was a very clear purpose to you. Fertility. In this new world of yours, you're nothing but a tool. Young women from ages 16 to about 35 would be taken and forced to have children. This sounds absolutely terrifying, and I never thought of this idea until I read The Handmaid's Tale by Margaret Atwood this year in class. And this reality that she spoke of was absolutely terrifying. But, like most people, I found comfort in the idea that, well, yes, there are some elements like the abortion bans that happened, the dictatorship seeming to come into play, which is currently happening in the United States, and among other things, segregation against cultures and people. But I never really, in my mind, it was fiction. None of this would actually happen, because that's what stories are, they're fake. But what if there was something real? What if women were actually forcibly being taken and forced to basically be used as machines? Baby machines, against their will. Almost like a human farm, a human baby farm. That's something that I never thought about and I never thought could be real because, when you think of a farm, you think of poor living conditions, maybe a barn, some hay. I was like, they'd never have a human farm. You can't have a human farm. And then on February 1st, towards the end of January, really, 3 women came forward and they said, hello. We were kidnapped and we were held captive at a human egg farm in Georgia for the last year. And we need help. Authorities have looked, but they've said that there was no concrete evidence besides these women's word, and even though the women provided photographic evidence, among other things, their case hasn't been taken very strongly. And I myself, while doing research, I've had to scrape together a lot of information because every good article I found discussing this, the next day it would be gone. It was almost wiped, which I found very concerning, and so I had to keep screenshotting articles, and some of my sources may have been deleted. So if you have any questions or if anyone has something to say, let me know and I'll see if I can get you my resources the best of my abilities. But like I said, a lot of my sources no longer exist because they were deleted. So yeah, today's going to be a pretty heavy episode. We're going to be talking about kidnapping, trafficking, infertility, and also a misrepresentation of victims. If any of those things are triggering to you, be sure to come back for the next episode. And with that, welcome to episode 2 of Why Should You Care? Back in April 2024, there was this girl. Let's call her Anna. She was from Moscow and she was a university student. And right now she's preparing for a job interview. But not the kind of interview you're thinking of. She wasn't making sure her shirt looked clean. She wasn't making sure that she had all her notes right for the position she was applying to. She didn't make sure that she looked well put together and like a team player, someone you'd want to have in the office. No. She tucked her hair behind her ears to make them more prominent because she knew that's what the buyers liked. She put on very little makeup to try and show off her natural skin, to make sure her eyes popped in just the right way. So what kind of people would be looking at her eyes and her ears and her hair? Her buyers. The Chinese couple that was sitting on the other end of the screen during the Zoom call. They wanted someone to fly to China. She would have a free flight to another country, accommodations, gourmet meals. Everything was free. But the problem was, in China, having your eggs removed is very, very illegal. You're not allowed to do it. And although Anna had already had her eggs removed multiple times in Moscow, this was something new. It was kind of a little bit of a thrill to it, During the interview, the couple asked her several questions, but it wasn't like, how are you? Have you done this before? What are we thinking? No. She was asked, what are your grades? What grades did you get in math? Do you find it easy to maintain your weight? Things like that. Things that they were looking at her intelligence, her body. 2 days later, the agent who Anna was working with, who she'd found through this company on Instagram, which was offering young students like her money, Her agent told her she'd been chosen for a donation, meaning she would be flown. When Anna arrived in China, a city with 32 million people in southwestern China, she stayed in a hotel room with panoramic windows on the 18th floor. It was beautiful. A young Chinese assistant was hired by her agent that drove her to all her appointments, communicating through a translator app. She was driven to hospital, back to her hotel, to a dinner. She felt like a luxury person. The hormonal stimulation only lasted for 10 days, and when Anna's period began, she visited the clinic for several tests. Afterwards, she would return to her hotel daily at 4 p.m., and besides being restricted from doing alcohol, smoking, exercise, and sex, Anna could do whatever she wanted. She could go shopping, she could make new friends. She was having a fully paid vacation in China. Anna's assistant, who had been driving her, took her to a residential area of China, instead of the normal clinic or hospital she'd gone to. Her phone and all of her documents were taken, and a sticker with Chinese characters was placed on her arm. She had no idea what it said. 4 Chinese women, along with Anna, entered a tinted windowed white van. She couldn't see outside. Anna began to panic, thinking they were going to sell her organs. She'd been kidnapped. This was the end of the line for her. How could she be so stupid to trust an Instagram app? But all of the women who were Chinese in the van, they seemed very calm. They seemed like they knew exactly where they were going, and they had no problem with going there. So Anna tried to remain calm because she was like, if these women know what's going on, if they can understand the language that's being spoken around me, and they can read the sticker, they must know that everything is going to be okay. The van stopped directly at a building entrance, leading to a staircase. At the very top, Anna found an operating room with recovery wards. It was like someone had set up an underground clinic. It was really sketchy. The checkups had all been at good hospitals and clinics, so she assumed the retrieval would be somewhere, maybe since it was illegal, she was sure it wouldn't be like at a prestigious hospital, but somewhere, maybe with a proper wall, maybe not like, I don't know, with a tarp hiding her from the rest of the world. After being put under anesthesia, Anna's eggs were retrieved using a needle guided by ultrasound. She woke up half an hour later and was taken back to meet her agent. Her belongings were returned along with her phone, and she was given IVF fluids at a legitimate hospital. Although that night, she had severe abdominal pain. She said she couldn't move. She just lay there. The pain was unbearable. Her abdomen was swollen. She could barely breathe. It was the worst night of her life. Back in Moscow, nothing had ever happened like this. When she donated eggs before, nothing had happened. She would just go home and she'd rest for a couple days, and boom, she'd be back to normal. Never this excruciating pain. The next morning, her agent took her to a hospital, where she vomited while her blood pressure was being checked. After another round of IVF fluid, her symptoms began to subside, and by that evening, she felt better. Normal, even. 4 days after the procedure, Anna went back to Moscow. Despite not signing any contracts with the agency, she received her promised 7,000 USD in cash. A doctor back in China had suggested that Anna's reaction had just been from the anesthesia she was put under, but Anna suspected it was from OHSS. We'll get into that in a little bit. So, why would Anna choose to do this, and who was even doing this in the first place? I never thought that something like fertility could become a whole industry, but in 2024, this absolute empire made 36.53 billion USD. That is a lot of money. The fertility industry recently has become such a good money-making business in modern day society. With infertility rates rising from chemical exposure, environment, lifestyle, inherited complications with reproductive organs, it's caused a higher fertility rate in both men and women's sides of reproduction. A big misconception is that infertility comes majorly from women, but it's equal parts men and women. The fertility industry has been criticized by many for exploiting young couples or those wishing to have children, as well as those looking to donate for some extra money. Whether it's dirty business or not, this industry has absolutely blown up. So what kind of things can happen in the fertility industry? Well, one of the largest things currently is surrogacy. With modern day medicine, we have 2 types of surrogates. There's a traditional surrogate. It's a woman who gets artificially inseminated with the father's sperm. They then carry the baby and deliver it for the parents to raise. A traditional surrogate is the baby's biological mother. That's when it's their egg that's fertilized by the father's sperm. Donor sperm can also be used. A gestational surrogate is a carrier who carries a pregnancy from an individual couple using an egg that is not from the carrier, meaning the egg of the intended mother has already been fertilized through IVF, otherwise known as in vitro fertilization, and is then placed within the surrogate. Those who use surrogacy and IVF are those who are infertile, women who've had hysterectomies, couples who are not able to produce as they are the same gender, and many like that. But it's not all positives, because this industry has a lot of negative impacts on someone's body, on someone's well-being, really. Ovarian hyperstimulation syndrome, OHSS, is a medical condition that can occur in some women who take fertility medication to stimulate egg growth, those who donate their eggs. Most cases are mild, but some can be severe and can lead to serious illness and sometimes even death. Put it so simply that it's possible that it's not actually correct. OHSS is basically when you take too many hormones that your body gets overwhelmed, and your fallopian tubes end up getting filled with a liquid, and it is absolutely terrifying. Many women have reported that they went to bed one night and woke up the next morning and they looked like they were 7 months pregnant. They had up to 40 pounds of liquid floating in your tubes, and it's terrifying and very, very painful, because as your eggs are floating around in this liquid and hitting the sides and the walls, it can damage your internal organs and be some of the most excruciating pain of your life. Women who have gone through pregnancy and childbirth had said that OHSS was even worse than giving birth, and they'd given birth 3 separate times. Why would you go through IVF or go through having your eggs extracted for this? Well, money. A lot of companies that do egg extraction, they target younger demographics, college girls, really. They put up posters in the hallways. It'll show a loving family or a little baby, and it says, do you want to make some extra money? Because we can pay you like $7,000, like up to $10,000, just to have your eggs extracted. These businesses, they charge tens of thousands of dollars, up to $100,000 for IVF. So having someone come and just for $7,000 having their eggs removed, it's a pretty sweet deal. And once they're injected with the hormones, you can extract batches of eggs. This is the term that's used. I'm not saying batch as in, like, that's not my term. This is what's been used in articles and in scientific research. But they can take, in a batch, normally a woman, you have 1 egg, and when given hormones, the average woman will have maybe 15 eggs. But some are super producers. They can have over 20. Sometimes they can have 30 eggs at once. And that is not natural to your body. It is very, very disturbing. And it's not safe at all. Having your body extract this many eggs at such rapid of a pace is very, very unnatural. And it can be very harmful to not only your internal organs, but it can mess up your mind psychologically and have a lot of negative impacts on people's health. Girls that have gone through egg extraction have said that the actual most painful part was leading up to the egg extraction, when their bodies would just become unbearable, and knowing that even at the end of this, they were getting paid, it wasn't really worth it. But that's in the US. What if there was somewhere that making money, it was even harder? You could barely scrape by with the money that you had, and minimum wage was so low that you could barely support yourself and your family. What would you be willing to do then to get that money? Back in September 2024, a woman, we're going to call her Miss Na, burst through the doors of the Pavina Foundation, a nonprofit working to protect women and children from human trafficking. In hysterics, she began screaming, "You've got to help me, please." She's begging at the front reception. Everyone's trying to calm her down. "Ma'am, calm down. What's wrong?" they ask her. And she starts to explain. You can find anything on Facebook. Baby photos to use as blackmail on your classmates you don't like, your dream couch, and apparently surrogate jobs. Multiple Thai women had the same ad show up. Loving family in Georgia looking for surrogates. I should make it very clear. This Georgia is the one in Europe, not the one in the US. Not the place where we get our peaches out in Georgia. This is Georgia in Europe. So these posters, these ads, would always say the same thing. Loving family in Georgia looking for surrogates. Travel and living accommodations are paid for. Make from $11,000 to $20,000 for your time of service, 8 to 12 months. Now, to you or me, that may not sound like a lot of money for a year of work. $11,000 to $20,000? But in Thailand, the average yearly salary is $5,000 to $6,000 USD. So, from just 1 year of being a surrogate for these Georgian families, you can make 2 to 3 years of work. And that is good money. And if we know anything these days, people will do almost anything for good money. But it doesn't even sound like half a bad deal. You get a paid trip all the way to Georgia. Your living accommodations, you live with this wonderful family. They make sure you're fed. They make sure you're happy, you're healthy, because you're carrying their child. You're living in their home with them. It sounds like a pretty good deal. I mean, these women, they were excited. So Miss Na explains that she signed up. And she was told that she was going to be flown out to Dubai. So Miss Na packs her bags and boards a plane, along with 4 other Thai women and 2 Chinese nationals who explained that they're going to be the guides leading the women to where they're going to be doing their surrogacy jobs. When they arrive, first, there's no direct flights from Thailand to Georgia, so they arrive first in Dubai, and they are just ecstatic. This is beautiful. They're staying at this luxury hotel with these giant rooms. There's a pool. Remember, these are young women. And this is like their dream vacation. The Chinese nationals are like, go ahead, girls, like take photos, like enjoy yourself. This is your time. And I mean, you don't have to tell them twice. They're having the time of their lives, taking photos, videos, sending photos to their family, texting their friends, showing off this amazing place they're in. I mean, who can blame them? After spending 4 days in Dubai, they would fly to Georgia. And when they arrive, 2 men, and they would say, okay, you need to give us your passports and your wallets. What? Excuse me? Miss Na and the other women were confused. What do you need my passport for? They explained, well, we've done this, we've been doing this for years, and sometimes there's just little incidences that come up. You can never be too careful, And, well, sometimes what people do is they have their passport, and for some reasons, they try and leave because they no longer want to do the job. Sometimes they try and take the baby with them, and sometimes, they just, they try and run away with the money before they actually deliver the baby. And so just as a precaution for everyone's security, we're going to have your passports if you want to travel, if the family ever travels, or you want to go on vacation, go back to Thailand to visit your family. We can give you your passport if everything's permitted. But if you're just trying to run away, even if you want to keep the baby and you want your passport to go home, just let us know. We'll give it to you. We'll have to talk about it, obviously, because it violates your contract to try and take the baby. But we'll work it out with you. The women are like, okay, that makes sense. So they give them their wallets and they give them their passports. They're still able to keep their phones, though, which surprised me. And they get into a large van and they start driving. Now, the women are so excited. They're so giddy. This is a new country. They've never been to Georgia before. They're so excited. And they expect to be dropped off, one by one. Maybe they'll all be brought first to an office building, or maybe they'll be dropped off one by one, and the men will go in and introduce them to the Georgian families and get themselves settled. But then they pull up to a warehouse. The women are confused. They're forced out of the car and into a giant room filled with 70 other Thai women who look scared, underfed, terrified. At first, Miss Na and the others are like, okay, it's okay. It's, this is going to be okay. I'm sure we're just, maybe the families come and get us from here. And, they've spent a lot of money getting us to Dubai. Maybe this is the best they could do. No. When they start asking questions to the other women, they tell them tearfully that they are not surrogates. They're going to be kept here, in this warehouse, as vessels to take their eggs. Basically, every month, the women would be taken into a room. They called it the white room. They'd be taken into the white room and put under anesthetics. where they would have hormones injected to their bodies. The hormones would stimulate egg growth, and within a few days they would have eggs extracted. Like I said earlier, some women can have an average of 15 eggs, but a lot of these women, they would have a very large amount of eggs. And if they were doing this every month, this demanding process to their body, it was very high that they could get OHSS, as we previously discussed, can be life-threatening and very dangerous. But the women were told, you have a way to go home. You just have to pay the $2,000 ransom. So, like we were saying earlier, $2,000, that is a lot of money. $2,000 is the average yearly salary back in Thailand. Where I live in Canada, the average yearly salary is $54,000. That's like being told that if I want to be free, I gotta pay $54,000 just for my freedom. And these women, they don't have access to that money. They can barely contact their families. Their families have reported, I should add, that when they tried to contact these women while they were being held captive, they would just reply with short words, short messages. That didn't really seem like them. So it's suspected that it was probably the men holding them captive that were messaging for them. So the only way out was to pay basically your entire year's salary. And these young women, a lot of them didn't have families back home they could go to. A lot of them didn't have access. So what were they going to do? They had no choice but to be trapped here. Miss Na, she was lucky. She was able to quickly send in a message to her family, and they were able to pay the $2,000 ransom after a couple months. And back in September, when she arrived, she told them, listen, there's these 3 women I've befriended. They're very important to me. I need them to be set free. I need these women to be free because they mean the world to me, and they're my friends that I befriended in this warehouse. I need them out. They need to be freed. They don't deserve this. And so the Pavina Foundation, who we previously discussed, they raised money and were able to rescue the other 3 women, who, once they were rescued, at the end of January, beginning of February, began doing press conferences. But there's something that I think is really inspiring. A lot of people have speculated that these women really want attention, that if the story is fake, they're doing it as a way to get attention. But these women, when they're doing these interviews, they're completely covered. They're wearing masks, they're wearing sunglasses, they're wearing hats, they're wearing basically what looks like rain ponchos. They're completely covered. There's no identifying features at all, and their voices are distorted. They're not correct. They're not their actual voices. So these women don't want to be known. They're not in it for fame. They're not in it for money, clearly, because they're not making any money from sharing their story. They're doing it to try and protect others. Once this story got out there, as you can imagine, it was big news. But then it started being subsided. I myself learned this from TikTok. I was scrolling one day and I saw human egg farm found in Georgia, and I was like, oh my gosh, why isn't this all over the news? This seems really important. But it's not. No one else seems to be considering this as important. The news, when I was trying to research for this episode, I would find a really good site, and 24 hours later it'd be gone. It would be completely wiped. I would have to go back and keep refreshing the pages, and the article would no longer exist because the Georgian government, once this story came out there's no way you can ignore it. They're saying that there's a human egg farm being held in your country. So they send authorities to this facility. And it's kind of empty. There's like some Thai women, they look very happy. And this creeps me out because if the story is true, which I strongly believe it is true, because normally it's just within me, I normally listen to victims, and I think it's important that we hear their voices and understand their stories. So when I first heard this story, also there has been evidence to come with the story, I should point out, and while authorities have denied it, we honestly, if I've learned anything from my 17 years on this earth, is that we can never trust the government fully. So keep that in mind while I'm telling this. But the authorities, they went to the warehouse, and there were baby pictures hung on the walls. Success stories, they called it, for the surrogacy that these women were allegedly performing. That's what the Chinese nationals who were with these Thai women. And there was one woman that they interviewed. It's not sure if she was Thai or she was Georgian, but she was the only woman that could speak Georgian in the room. She told them, we're very happy here. We're paid good money. We do our surrogacy job. It's a good life. But like I said, it's not confirmed she was Thai. She could have been Chinese, working with the Chinese nationals. She could have been from Georgia. She could have been any ethnicity, working with the nationals. And the women weren't allowed to talk to the authorities. They couldn't talk to the authorities. They couldn't speak their language. And there was just posters hung all over the walls of babies and smiling babies. But honestly, I do think it's quite concerning that this was, like, imagine you're being held captive, having your eggs extracted, and you're being kept in basically a prison. And there's just baby photos hanging everywhere. And you know that you're being used, you're being stolen, you're being farmed. Like, it is really a farm. They are harvesting these young girls, really. They're in their young 20s. Like, the oldest ones there are in their late 20s. And the youngest ones are just got into their 20s. They're harvesting their ovaries. Using the word harvesting, I feel like it adds a whole new depth to it and just makes you think about it so much more, because this isn't like they didn't volunteer for this. They're being stolen. Another thing that people were talking about online when the authorities were like, don't worry everyone, it's all good, is if they really were surrogates, why would they be held in a warehouse? Like, there were no beds in this warehouse. This is where they would spend their days. There were rooms that they had at night, which were very minimal beds with a few blankets on them. I'll provide pictures on TikTok and Instagram. But it wasn't a very luscious life. It wasn't the life they'd been promised to work, the full living conditions paid for. So that raises a lot of red flags. Now, people have a lot of theories as to what they think this is being used for. Now, considering that it's being done with Chinese nationals are the only men to, there's not just the two that I originally talked about, but there are multiple. They are the only reported people who are operating this. So it's believed that it is a Chinese black market that is going on to sell ovaries, because as I previously said in Anna's story, it's illegal to have your eggs extracted in China. So maybe they found a loophole and you're able to have your eggs extracted elsewhere and are able to bring it back to China. And it can be a lot of money to pay women to have their eggs extracted, so maybe they thought it'd be best if they harvested them from women. Also, this is my own personal theory. Recently in my biology class, we were talking about genome editing and how you can alter someone's genetics to make them resilient to pain, get rid of sickle cell disease, and all sorts of things. You can make designer babies, blonde hair, blue eyes, super tall, muscular. I was wondering, imagine if they were harvesting these ovaries so they could use them for an experiment. What if they were testing on these ovaries? What if they were trying to genome edit or some form of experiment? I mean, they've already begun editing using CRISPR on two twins who had their genes modified before birth. The goal was to make these two young girls immune to HIV and AIDS, but they previously already didn't have HIV or AIDS, and there's been reports that their intelligence seems to be more than others. So some people are wondering if HIV and AIDS is the covering, but really they were trying to see if they can enhance people's minds. So that's today's episode on the human egg farm. I'm very sorry that it's very rushed and very poorly put together. My laptop hates me, and I'm now using my sister's laptop. The next episode, I promise, will be better quality, better in general. It's been a long week. It's been a long week, guys. So why should we care about this human egg farm and how it ties into our world? Now, I don't think I really need to explain this because I feel like it's pretty obvious that human egg farm, those words alone, I don't know about you, but they strike fear into my heart. But a human egg farm would mean that our rights as women, as people, are being diminished. And if infertility is becoming as big a problem as it is, we're just one step closer to a reality such as The Handmaid's Tale. And having women be kidnapped and have children basically made from them and being trafficked. Human trafficking is it's something that goes on in our daily lives and people don't realize. It's something that happens behind the scenes. If Miss Na had never escaped, these women would never have been found. I don't think they would have, because large amounts of women go missing every day. In the USA and Canada, Indigenous women go missing every day, and no one realizes. There are hundreds of missing names. And in Thailand, if a woman or even 100 women go missing, it's not a big news report. It's not getting everyone's headlines. So I think we should care about this because we need to protect people. And I know this is, as a girl, when I say this, everyone's going to be like, well, of course, you're a girl, you're going to say that. But I really do think we need to keep more attention on women. And we need to keep our eyes open and try and protect these girls who are being abused for their bodies, and their bodily autonomy is being taken away from them in so many shapes and forms with the abortion bans and now a human egg farm. This is the only one we've uncovered, but if they have one, who's to say there's not more? 10, 20, 100 all over the globe. Maybe down the street, that abandoned warehouse that you don't know what it's used for could be a human egg farm. And I just think them, the government, and organizations now stooping to this level, it's very concerning. And we should all be aware and keep our eyes open and our hearts open and our minds open, because if this is our new reality, it's about to get scary really quickly. Thank you so much for listening to this week's episode of Why Should You Care? I'm so sorry this upload is so bad. I can already tell that this is a bad episode and people are going to be listening and like, River, please stop talking. Please go back. Go back to being unemployed and no hobbies. Go back. Get off this laptop. But guys, I'm trying my best. I'm so sorry. My laptop is not my friend right now. She's also my baby, and she's currently somewhere over the rainbow in Toronto? ? She's MIA. So I'm using my sister's laptop right now, so my quality is going to be lower, and since this is a Wednesday night, I'm a little more stressed than I would be if I was recording this leisurely on a weekend. Yeah. So I'm sorry for the lower quality, and I will be sure to make up for it. My third episode, we're going to be discussing the stories behind residential schools and the reality of what happened behind those closed doors. That episode, hopefully, if everything goes according to plan, will be up on the 27th of April. But as we've seen, the world loves to throw a curveball at me. So let's hope for the best. Everyone stay safe out there. If you have any ideas for episodes, any questions, comments, if I'm really open to having guests. If you are someone who just wants to be part of the discussion, have me explain something to you and you can ask questions and maybe make this a little more interactive, let me know, because I'm always open to that. Or if you know a lot about something that you think people should care about, be that an issue going on in current times, something that's happened in history, or just anything in general, just shoot me a DM on Instagram or TikTok, or send me an email. You can find my email is everything and the letter N, and then anything podcast at gmail.com. You can also find that on my website, which is on my Linktree. There's so many ways to reach me. You can find me on YouTube, TikTok, Linktree, website, Instagram. I'm everywhere. So if you go looking a little bit, I'm sure you'll find me. Be sure to reach out, and I would love to have some guests. Thank you so much for listening to this week's episode. Stay safe, everyone, and I love you guys. Bye!